Please like the video and share it so that it reaches many more people and you get sawaba, or rewards from Allah. This could be a sawabe jariyah or continuous reward for you long after you are gone.
Volume 3, Book 44, number 674. Narrated by Urwa bin Az Zubair, that he had asked Aisha about the meaning of the statement of Allah, "If you fear that you shall not be able to deal justly with the orphan girls, then marry other women of your choice, 2 or 3 or 4. 4.3. She said, "O my nephew, this is about the orphan girl who lives with her guardian and shares his property. Her wealth and beauty may tempt him to marry her without giving her an adequate mahr, bridal money, which might have been given by another suitor. So, such guardians were forbidden to marry such orphan girls unless they treated them justly and gave them the most suitable mahr. Otherwise they were ordered to marry any other woman." Aisha further said, after that verse the people again asked the Prophet about the marriage with orphan girls. So Allah revealed the following verses. They ask your instruction concerning the women. Say, Allah instructs you about them and about what is recited unto you in the book, concerning the orphan girls to whom you give not the prescribed portions and yet whom you desire to marry. 4.127. What is meant by Allah's saying, "And about what is recited unto you" is the former verse which goes, "If you fear that you shall not be able to deal justly with the orphan girls, then marry other women of your choice." 4.3. Aisha said, Allah's saying in the other verse, "Yet whom you desire to marry," 4.127, means the desire of the guardian to marry an orphan girl under his supervision when she has not much property or beauty, in which case he should treat her justly. The guardians were forbidden to marry their orphan girls possessing property and beauty without being just to them, as they generally refrain from marrying them when they are neither beautiful nor wealthy. Volume 3, Book 44, number 675. Narrated by Jabir bin Abdullah. The Prophet established the right of shuva, i.e. preemption, in joint properties, but when the land is divided and the ways are demarcated, then there is no preemption. Volume 3, Book 44, number 676. Narrated by Jabir bin Abdullah. The Prophet said, "The right of preemption is valid in every joint property, but when the land is divided and the way is demarcated, then there is no right of preemption." Volume 3, Book 44, number 677. Narrated by Sulaiman bin Abu Muslim. I asked Abu Minal about money exchange from hand to hand. He said, "I and a partner of mine bought something partly in cash and partly on credit. Al-Bara bin Azib passed by us and we asked about it. He replied, I and my partner Zaid bin al-Arqam did the same and then went to the Prophet and asked him about it. He said, take what was from hand to hand and leave what was on credit." Volume 3, Book 44, number 678. Narrated by Abdullah. Allah's apostle rented the land of Khaybar to the Jews on the condition that they would work on it and cultivate it and take half of its yield. Volume 3, Book 44, number 679. Narrated by Uqba bin Amir. That Allah's apostle gave him some sheep to distribute among his companions in order to sacrifice them, and a kid was left. He told the Prophet about it and the Prophet said to him, "Sacrifice it on your behalf." Volume 3, Book 44, number 680. Narrated by Abdullah bin Hisham. That his mother Zainab bint Humayd took him to the Prophet and said, "O Allah's apostle, take the pledge of allegiance from him." But he said, "He is still too young for the pledge," and passed his hand on his, i.e., Abdullah's, head and invoked for Allah's blessing for him. Surah bin Mabad stated that he used to go with his grandfather, Abdullah bin Hisham, to the market to buy foodstuff. Ibn Umar and Ibn Az Zubair would meet him and say to him, "Be our partner," as the Prophet invoked Allah to bless you. So, he would be their partner, and very often he would win a camel's load and send it home. Volume 3, Book 44, number 681. Narrated by Ibn Umar. The Prophet said, "Whoever manumits his share of a jointly possessed slave, it is imperative on him to manumit the slave completely if he has sufficient money to pay the rest of its price, which is to be estimated justly. He should pay his partners their shares and release him, the freed one." Volume 3, Book 44, number 682. Narrated by Abu Hurairah. The Prophet said, "Whoever manumits his share of a jointly possessed slave, it is essential for him to manumit the slave completely if he has sufficient money. Otherwise he should look for some work for the slave, to earn what would enable him to emancipate himself, without overburdening him with work." Volume 3, Book 44, number 683. Narrated by Ibn Abbas. The Prophet, along with his companions, reached Mecca in the morning of the 4th of Dhul Hijjah, assuming ihram for Hajj only. So when we arrived at Mecca, the Prophet ordered us to change our intentions of the ihram for Umrah, and that we could finish our ihram after performing the Umrah, and could go to our wives for sexual intercourse. The people began talking about that. Jabir said surprisingly, "Shall we go to Mina while semen is dribbling from our male organs?" Jabir moved his hand while saying so. When this news reached the Prophet, he delivered a sermon and said, "I have been informed that some peoples were saying so and so. By Allah, I fear Allah more than you do, and am more obedient to him than you. If I had known what I know now, I would not have brought the hadi, sacrifice, with me, and had the hadi not been with me, I would have finished the ihram." At that, Suraka bin Malik stood up and asked, "O Allah's Apostle, is this permission for us only, or is it forever?" The Prophet replied, "It is forever." In the meantime, Ali bin Abu Talib came from Yemen and was saying labbaik for what the Prophet has intended. According to another man, Ali was saying labbaik for Hajj, similar to Allah's apostles. The Prophet told him to keep on the ihram and let him share the hadi with him. Volume 3, Book 44, number 684. Narrated by Abiyah bin Rifah. My grandfather, Rafi bin Khadij, said, "We were in the valley of Dhul Hulayfa of Tuhama in the company of the Prophet, and had some camels and sheep, of the booty. The people hurried in slaughtering the animals, and put their meat in the pots and started cooking. Allah's apostle came and ordered them to upset the pots, and distributed the booty, considering one camel as equal to 10 sheep. One of the camels fled, and the people had only a few horses, so they got worried. The camel was chased, and a man slopped the camel by throwing an arrow at it. Allah's apostle said, 'Some of these animals are untamed like wild animals. So if any one of them went out of your control, then you should treat it as you have done now.' My grandfather said, 'O Allah's Apostle, we fear that we may meet our enemy tomorrow, and we have no knives. Could we slaughter the animals with reeds?' The Prophet said, 'Yes, or you can use what would make blood flow, slaughter. And you can eat what is slaughtered, and the name of Allah is mentioned at the time of slaughtering. But don't use teeth or fingernails in slaughtering. I will tell you why. As for teeth, they are bones, and fingernails are used by Ethiopians for slaughtering. See Hadith 668.